On today's video, I'm going to be sharing some techniques with you guys that are unknown for most people. If you cook the basic stuff with sous vide, you're about to learn something new. And if you already use some of these techniques, there still might be something here for you as well. As I'll be covering the basics of sous vide cooking, but taking it a little bit farther than I ever done before. I'm going to be cooking 3 different steaks. The first one is pretty simple, basics, what sous vide is all about. The second one, I'm going to be using something you might never heard before. It's called Sous Vide Express, but most people call it Delta cooking. And on the third steak, we're going to explore the best possible method to cook a beautiful Wagyu Tomahawk steak. There's a lot to learn, so enough talking, let's begin. And we're starting off with filet mignon. These are 2 beautiful thick steaks. That's the first thing you should know about sous vide. Thicker steak will do better. If your steaks are way too thin, it might not even be worth cooking it. At least an inch, or better yet, an inch and a half. One of the most important things that you must know in order to master sous vide is this: focus on time and temperature. Once you know the time and temperature of what it takes to cook that steak, you will nail it every single time. Now, luckily for you, I have done hundreds of videos, and you can do a search on YouTube and find any steak you want to cook. I've already done it. But if you want specifics, here are some guidelines. Rare, 120 for 2 hours. Medium rare, this one will depend on the fat content of the steak. 129 degrees Fahrenheit for leaner cuts, and 135 for more fattier cuts, such as ribeye, picanha. Lean cuts like a filet mignon, 129 is the key. And everything for 2 hours. Medium should be at 140 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. Medium well, 145 for 2 hours. And lastly, if you want your steak well done, 155 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. Now, to season it, I keep it real simple. A good amount of salt followed by freshly ground black pepper and garlic powder. Freshly ground will always be better than this junk. For some reason, a lot of people under-season their steak, especially with sous vide. Gotta remember, the steak is cooking in its own brine juices. So yeah, you gotta be quite generous with it. Perfectly seasoned filet mignon. That's what you want. Now, sous vide stands for cooking under vacuum. You must pull a vacuum in order to cook it sous vide. If not, you're just cooking in a bag, everybody. Steaks go inside. There are 2 types of bags and methods that you can use. One is a vacuum chamber, which is more expensive, but the bags are cheaper. And the other one is a vacuum sealer, which sucks the air out little by little. Since I have a vacuum chamber, I'm gonna use it. Just put it in there, close it, and what it does is that it's sucking all of the air first, creating a vacuum-like space. And what's cool about it is that all the pores of the steaks are being opened right now. See, it allowed all the air to go back in, and it's perfectly sealed. Now, this steak is very lean, and it's also one of the most tender cuts there is. Since it's really lean, I'm going for 129 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours. Just gotta throw my steak in there. And that's the beauty of sous vide. Set it and forget it, come back 2 hours later. And here's the most interesting thing. If you don't want to come back 2 hours later, you can actually leave the steak there for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. You can still leave the steak for longer, but it's gonna go from a steak to a roast. And you really don't want to do that. Technically, you can leave it there forever, but the texture will completely change. So for any steak, try to never go over 6 hours. It's been 2 hours, let's take them out. Let's open it up. I highly recommend using a cooling rack for this, but if you don't have one, a plate with a paper towel works just fine. And the reason is because we want all of the juices to escape. One of the things you can never forget is to make sure to pat it dry really good. Very important. Because if you don't, it's gonna take longer to sear, and if you take too long to sear, you're gonna overcook it. That's the last thing we want. We want a perfect steak, and this is how to do it. There's nothing that will beat the consistency of sous vide. It's fantastic in every steak, and the best part, it's easy, everybody. But now we're gonna pan sear this one. So the first thing I like to do is to put in a good high temperature oil. I wanna get this pan nice and hot, and now we sear. If you put your steak in and you don't hear that sizzling, you're doing it wrong. 1 minute per side, that's the key. I like to always lift a little bit, put a little bit more oil, and set it down again. Doing that will get new fresh oil and get that wonderful sear. This one, you really don't want to flip it many times because it's cooked all the way through. All we're trying to do is develop a crust. Just leave it alone. However, you can always go ahead and check it. As you see, that looks pretty good to me already. And flip the other side. I'll do the same with the other steak. Nice crust. I'm about halfway right now with my crust, as you guys can see. So right at this point, I'm gonna lower my temperature. I'm gonna throw out a little bit of that oil. Immediately crush some garlic. Now I like a lot of garlic, so I'm gonna go a little bit extra, everybody, okay? In I go with some butter, and we'll go in with garlic, a lot of garlic. For most people, this will be way too much, but not for me. And we're gonna go in with thyme. As the butter is browning up and foaming, I'm gonna go ahead and start basting the steak. There's something to be said about garlic, thyme, and butter on a steak. It's just phenomenal, everybody. If you don't feel comfortable basting your steak, you can also just flip it. Either way will work just fine. The only thing you have to remember is that you don't want to overcook it. Now here's another thing that most people don't know about sous vide. It was cooked nice and slow, so there's no need to let it rest. Once you're happy with your crust, go ahead and take them out. They look gorgeous. Just gonna put right on the top here, just like so, because I'm about to finish this steak right now. I'm gonna put this right on top. And to finish it up, I'm just gonna add this wonderful butter on the top, everybody. That's enough. We can't wait any longer. Let's go ahead and cut up these steaks open. Oh man, they feel so tender, everybody. Ooh. Is that perfect? Or is that perfect? Cut them nice and thick since it's so tender. I mean, take a look at it, everybody. As good as it gets. Go ahead and slice the next one. So tender that it's hard to cut. You don't believe me? Well, let me show you guys how good this is. I know this is Angel's favorite thing to do. A little bit of garlic chips in there, Angel, for you. Just go. Just go. Just dig in.
That is so amazing. That garlic wrapped in there is like a special treat wrapped around a blanket of beefy deliciousness.
There's something about these garlics when you baste it with butter and thyme, and when you put that butter on the steak, it's just like,
This is a regular traditional sous vide method. We got one that is way faster, and here's how. Now it's time to learn a little bit more advanced technique. And I like to call this one Sous Vide Express. It's known in the restaurant industry as Delta cooking. Let me be clear. If you want the perfect sous vide steak, you should use it the traditional method, which I just did with those filet mignon. But if one day you're in a hurry and you want to cook steaks quickly, but you still want to get that nice, perfect medium rare, this might be an option for you. So let's begin. And for that, I'm going to be using this beautiful Wagyu picanha. As you can see, it is a beautifully well-marbled steak. It has a nice, beautiful fat cap, and most importantly, my favorite cut of steak. Now I recommend Sous Vide Express only for fattier steak. And here's how it works. First thing, like always, we gotta get these steaks seasoned. Salt, followed by black pepper. And usually for picanha, I don't use garlic powder, but in order to be consistent, I am. Now, if you're a sous vide expert, you might have a lot to say about this technique. Most people say that it's the same thing as if you were doing a reverse sear. So we're gonna put that to the test. As one of these steaks, I'm gonna be cooking it the Sous Vide Express method. And on the other steak, instead of doing that, I'm gonna be using reverse sear. This way, you're gonna be able to really tell the differences between them. So now, let me vacuum seal this real quick. So the biggest problem whenever you're cooking the express method is this. There is carryover when you're cooking anything hot and fast. What does that mean? If your cooking method is at a high temperature and the steak is reaching that temperature, the outer perimeter of the steak will start cooking first, and it goes into the middle so that it can reach your desired temperature, which for us is 135 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you take that out at 135 degrees Fahrenheit, the exterior is way above that. So that carryover heat will continue to penetrate the meat, even though you took it off. That is the same exact thing with reverse sear. So even though our final temperature will be 135 degrees Fahrenheit, you want to aim it at 130 degrees Fahrenheit to pull out the steak. Now, luckily, I've done a lot of tests already, and you don't need any special equipment. And here are the rules that I best came up with. Keep it simple. The master temperature is 150 degrees Fahrenheit. However, if your steak is 1 inch thick, you're cooking it for 20 minutes. If it's 1.5 inches thick, 30 minutes. 2 inches, 40 minutes. And 3 inches, 50 minutes. This is a way for you to cook things fast. And every time you're cooking it hot and fast, the texture will slightly change. But it's so slightly that it's actually worth you giving this a go. And it's still better than the reverse sear method. Now, how does the reverse sear method works? First, we set the temperature in the oven to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Throw the steak in there, and you must monitor it with a thermometer. Once it reaches an internal temperature of 130 degrees Fahrenheit, you take it off. Because remember, there will be slightly a carryover as well. For my Sous Vide Express, if you follow those times and thickness of your steak, it will be faster than the reverse sear because water will always be a greater conductor of heat than air. Don't believe me? Well, let's put it to the test. For the reverse sear, first I gotta put my thermometer in and into the oven it goes. For the express, 150 on the sous vide circulator, and for this steak, since it's 1.5 inches thick, 30 minutes. Now there is one magical thing you can use. That will be this tape right here, everybody. This tape allows you to put it on a sous vide bag and take the temperature internally without rupturing the bag. Buy this tape. It's not expensive and it will save you a lot of time. Here's the wonderful thing about it. It has been 30 minutes. The reverse sear steak is right now at 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The express is done. Let's take it out. I'm telling you, everybody, this method, if you master it, it's a game-changing thing. 30 minutes, steak is ready. That reverse sear is gonna take another 20 or 30 minutes. Gonna open up the bag, I'm gonna set it down on a cooling rack, and unfortunately we have to wait a little bit longer for the reverse sear. It's finally done. Now I want you to notice two things. The express sous vide one still has a nice shape. The reverse sear had a lot more heat, so the meat contracted. Regardless of what it is, if you are going to put a sear on a steak, you must pat it dry, everybody, because moisture will avoid you from getting a nice crust. And the longer your crust takes to develop, the more you're overcooking the steak. So always pat your steak dry. And since we pan seared the last one, this one we're gonna use some charcoal. We got the grill nice and hot, and we're gonna start searing these beautiful steaks. Now the key here is that you wanna do this quickly, no longer than 1 minute per side. I like to rotate my grill grate and immediately put it on a different side. See how I got no sizzling right now? That's what I want. As you can see, we're getting a nice crust already. Rotate, and the last part is the fat. And here's how I like to do it. I grab the steak this way, step away from the grill a little bit, and slightly let the fat render. Notice that my tongues are outside of the grill, allowing me to control it without burning my hand. Same thing with the other one, and that's it. It's done. Here's the reverse seared. Squirting out juice when I cut it. This is at 135 degrees Fahrenheit, fine oak temperature, and it is as juicy as it gets, everybody. And now the express sous vide. I mean, come on now. Doesn't get any juicier than that. All right, gentlemen, we have two beautiful steaks here. I want your honest opinion. Please, dig in.
I gotta say, I love my job.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
It's so good.
A fresh, hot, juicy steak. There's nothing that beats this in this whole world.
Juicy, tender, and delicious, everybody. On the money.
This is perfect. There's nothing wrong here.
And go you double trying all of these?
Yeah, hell yeah, bro. Gotta try more. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh! That one's so good. It's hard to tell which one I like more, guys.
Both of them are good. Which one you like better?
It's a close call, but I'm gonna choose this steak more because I like that crust on it. It's a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more flavorful, more dynamic.
I'm agreeing with Leo. It's pretty close, but I'm going with this one.
So what if I tell you this one? This was cooked a lot faster.
Then that's pretty worth it.
They're both great, everybody, and there are techniques for you to use, and I'll tell you one thing right now. You don't believe me? I'm gonna cook another steak for you. You guys want some more?
Hell yeah.
If you're still not a believer on the Sous Vide Express, let's cook this beauty. An Australian Wagyu Marbling Score 9. This is a nice, fatty, thick steak and perfect for the Sous Vide Express method. Trust me, it cost a pretty penny, and if this method did not work, I would not use it. Cooking this reverse sear will take hours. Sous Vide Express, not so much. To season it, I'm keeping it very, very simple. A good amount of salt, followed by freshly ground black pepper and garlic powder. Now, this is a thick steak. We must make sure that we season this thing well. The only thing you gotta remember about big steaks is that you gotta have a big bag, everybody. And a vacuum chamber for this kind of stuff will cost way too much money for the average home cook. So we use the vacuum sealer, and it just sucks the air. There we have it. Now in it goes. Reverse searing that will take way longer than an hour. This one will be done in about 45 minutes to 50. Tomahawk steak is ready. Let's open it up. Open up the bag. Set it down on my cooling rack. Oh man. Now just like every other steak, we have to pat it dry. Now here's a really good tip. For large steaks like this, if you want to speed things up, I highly recommend using the sous vide gun, also known as the flamethrower. It does quick work, but the best part, it is fun, everybody. Because now I know exactly what you're thinking. My steak don't look that good right now, but watch this. We got a nice, wonderful sear. Now using a time brush, I'm gonna baste my steak with some butter because we all know that butter and steak goes perfectly together. Now here's a quiz for you. Do we need to let the steak rest? Let me know in the comments. There we have it, everybody, a beautiful tomahawk steak. You will feed a lot of people or maybe just one guga. But let's slice it open right now. First, I like to remove the bone. And since this is a big, thick steak, I also like to remove the cap. The cap is this outer muscle right here. And a lot of people say that this is the best cut of the cow. Now, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of silver skin here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that out. And notice how perfectly medium rare it is. There's a big chunk of fat here. I'm gonna take that out as well. I'm gonna go ahead and slice it. Oh, perfection. Done in half the time than it would with reverse sear. There we have it. And to finish, I'm gonna slice in small pieces of heaven, everybody. I don't know if you guys can see, everything is cooked to perfection. And it's one of the reasons I love sous vide. You can cook it nice and slow, which will be better, by the way. Or you can cook hot and fast like this and get tremendous results. Now we try. It is as easy as that, everybody. It's gonna make a lot of people happy. Ooh, that's the cap, by the way.
Oh my God, I think that's the juiciest thing we've eaten.
And also the most expensive, Leo.
You can taste the price. This is so fatty, so beefy, very delicious. This tastes luxurious.
But I'm not gonna lie, I still prefer the picanha better than this one. How about you?
Me too.
I'll take the fillet.
Oh, the filet, okay.
That fillet was fire.
I hope you guys learned something new with this video. Let me be clear, it will never be better than real sous vide. But if you are pressed for time, it's one of the techniques you can use to make sure you get the perfect steak cooked. Isn't it good?
Delicious.
Awesome.
I need to stop eating so much of it because there's other people in the house.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe. Remember, everything I use is always on the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.